What made you laugh the hardest in your entire life? I nearly lost my mind laughing at my buddy's bachelor party, late at night, sitting at a table after much drinking. One of his friends, who is a lawyer, shared a theory that he'd heard. All foods can be categorized into 4 groups: sandwich, salad, soup, or ravioli. In other words, by this definition, a taco would be a sandwich, carb used to hold ingredients, open edges, whereas a calzone or a Pop-Tart would be classified as a ravioli. This is obviously a ridiculous position, but most of us were used to this guy's nonsense. However, one of the other guys at the table is from New York and took issue with this. He had never met the lawyer before this weekend. Things started getting heated. The more upset at these categories the guy from New York became, the more the lawyer doubled down and gave increasingly preposterous explanations and logic. What about spaghetti, you? Clearly a salad, it's tossed ingredients with a dressing. Meanwhile, the rest of us were starting to lose it at how upset the New Yorker was getting. It culminated in the guy from New York standing up out of his chair, slamming his hands against the table and passionately screaming, "Pizza is not a sandwich, goddammit," while the rest of us were crying laughing. Good times. Edit, you guys get it. The debate below about the various foods and how to categorize them is exactly the sort of discourse that precipitates people getting violent at bachelor parties. Told the story before, but it's still one of my favorites. Small child, maybe 4 years old, is running with 2 2-liter bottles of soda, maybe it was root beer. Lots of bouncing already. Then she trips, bottles go flying and she face plants. She lifts her head up to cry. And just then, at that perfectly timed moment, the cap blows off one of the bottles into her face, spraying her with soda and foam. Her mother runs over, still pushing the shopping cart for some reason, and naturally, slips on the other soda and, trying to catch herself, grabs the side of the shopping cart. She and cart tip over. A bag of flour explodes and covers the sticky child. All of this was done with the precision of a 1940s comedy short. It was really impressive. And sadly, I did not get to film it. This is the only one on here to make me actually laugh out loud. I have a Ukrainian co-worker who was several decades older than me, and is a super serious, pretty strange guy. He has a very stereotypical old-school Soviet style to him. He always speaks and identifies as Russian. He heard my friend and I telling trivial, amusing stories to each other on a break, and joined our little circle with the biggest smile on his face. Looking to join in and relate, he explains that when he was in university he had a car, but his friends destroyed his car by literally bludgeoning it to pieces and then beat him viciously as a prank. You know, as friends do. Then he could barely get through the next part of the story. He was laughing so hard, when he explained that from then on he had to run to and from university. He said he ran so often with his bag that he ended up separating his abdominal muscles and severely injuring himself. By this point my friend and I are dying from laughter too, so our comrade feels great about his smash hit of a story and heads back to his desk. I still won't go in a room alone with that guy. One of my co-workers is an older Russian lady who moved to the US around 20 years ago, and at work when someone complains about something she often jumps in with, "You have no idea. You never lived in Soviet Russia." And then proceeds to tell some bizarre story that definitely tops whatever the original complaint was. She's great. Bosnian here. I was hoping there would be stories like this in this thread and was not disappointed. Here is mine. We've been here since the mid-90s, and while my father can speak excellent English, he has yet to really get the meaningful English sayings quite correct. But since the language of Dad is universal, he insists on trying to use them often, usually incorrectly. I should also mention he calls meat flesh since that's how it was translated back in the day. This is relevant. I was struggling at my first real job getting adjusted to working in an office after college. Worse still, my dad had a stroke and had been in the hospital, and we were all terribly worried and on edge. I was just about to try to take a lunch break when I get an announcement to come to the front desk. I'm shocked and delighted to see that it is my father, in a wheelchair pushed by my mother, smiling with half his face and looking a bit glassy-eyed, but there, all the same. I run to them and say, "Papa! You're here! Is it really you?" Now what we think he wanted to say was, "Yes, it's me, in the flesh." What he ended up saying, with half a paralyzed face and super thick, way too loud Slavic accent was, "Yes. It is I, your father. The live meat man." Imagine this is the first thing you hear your father say after a week in the hospital. Imagine the sudden relief and incredible absurdity, watching these immigrants in a posh New York fashion office, drawing as much attention possible to the lowly new intern, their daughter. I have never laughed and laughed so hard in my life, I very nearly peed myself. My mother will still mumble "meat man" at me during times when we are supposed to be serious, like prayers, and I always immediately lose composure and laugh. He is in good health to this day, still mangling all kinds of English phrases, still a great the source of joy and amusement to his family. Edit. I am delighted you all enjoyed this story. I must tell you the postscript. After telling my father about telling this story to internet friends, he doesn't quite get Reddit, he said, "Oh yes. I remember that. What did I call myself? Man of meat and blood. Which I think is even better. He told me to say hi for him. Back in the mid-90s when I was a 15-something teenager. My cousins and I had the house to ourselves, so one decides to put a porno in the VCR. I warned him that my dad was coming home soon and that he might want to think twice, but he didn't heed my warning. We kept watching the front door so we'd be ready to eject the tape and not get caught. Lo and behold, my dad just happened to come through the side door in the garage that day and was suddenly standing there behind us. Myself and one of my cousins bolted out of the room when we noticed him. The third cousin wasn't so lucky. He noticed us running off and, with my dad right behind him, shouted after us, "Hey, where you guys going? Don't you want to jerk your?" At that point I lost all feelings in my legs as I fell to the floor in laughter. I could still see my cousin through the hallway, as he was slowly turning around and noticing my dad behind him, at which point he jumped back around, frantically trying to figure out how to turn off the VCR, but to no avail. It was one of those really old VCRs where stop and eject weren't on the front of the unit. He finally just dropped to his knees and tried hugging the TV to block the picture, crying that he was sorry. I turned so red from laughter that it felt like I was running a fever. I had difficulty breathing for the rest of the day and my ribs felt like they'd been shattered. My poor cousin though, he not only got caught watching porn in hilarious fashion, but he also got teased for years about whether or not he was serious about his proposal to jerk our in the same room together. Edit. My first gold and silver. Thank you, kind strangers. Also my highest rated comment. I'm so glad I brought everyone a good laugh this day, especially those thinking my dad was the one who made the jerking our comment, which would have been extra hilarious and extremely out of character for him. I'm sorry I can't keep up with the responses, but your laughs have put a big smile on my face today. I'm off to bed now, to sleep. Yeah, sleep. Dusts off VCR. Like 9 to 10 years ago I was at a stoplight with my friend after gorging ourselves nearly to death at a Chi-Chi's Pizza. We were in a lane to turn left, and a few cars up going straight was stopped as well. Suddenly, the back window rolls down and this like 13-year-old kid sticks his head out the window, looks into the driver's mirror, and starts professionally sucking the biggest imaginary you've ever seen. Like he was going to town. Me and my friend are in tears hyperventilating, we're laughing so hard. He stops abruptly, turns and looks straight at us, still laughing hysterically, and gives us this like of "Who the hell are you to laugh at me?" for like 20 seconds. And then goes back to sucking that imaginary. This went on for maybe a minute and a half, and we were crying the whole 30-minute drive home. I still judge funny things on a scale of 1 to kid sucking imaginary at a stoplight.